In today's 7th video, we will be adding some third-person stuff to this game to make some interesting things available, such as being able to see other characters, switching between third and first person, having like death in third person, maybe ragdolling. So open your project, remember, create your way, and let's get started. So I totally got recording like 20 minutes in again and had my recording and UE4 crashed. I think I filled up my SSD. So basically I don't really want to go back and redo everything again. So what I've done is I've taken I have opened up BP base character and selected mesh, and I set it to the mannequin mesh, the stock third person mesh, and I set the animation blueprint to the third person anim blueprint because we imported the third person template project. Then I went and I set it to non-visible and owner no see to true. That's under the advanced options of rendering. Then I created a spring arm. I called it spring arm 3P for third person. And the values that I found that worked pretty good were I guess we'll reset them. -41, 0, and 140. And a rotation of 0, 0, 90. I don't know why that got rotated. I don't think it was before. No. Oh, you know what? It's inheriting rotation. So we can just set it to 0 and it won't matter because it's parented. So yeah, that should actually be like 0, 0, 0 or something. I had it offset actually, so what the values should be if you're creating it new is X would be 0, Y was around 40, I think, about 40, and Z was around 100. And then the target arm length stayed the same, thankfully. That's 140, as did my offset of 30 in the Y and 10 in the Z, which throws the back end off. Then we disable inherent pitch and we enable use pawn control rotation. I enabled some camera rotation lag at a value of 3, so it's just barely there. And auto activate set to off so that it's not because we're gonna set it obviously through functions in different ways. And then I added a camera for the third person, which is now messed up because of parenting it in the crash, I guess. So it had a value of 5 degrees, or sorry, -5 degrees rotation in the Z, so it's pointing in towards the character. Let's see if I can set this back to the way it was. Okay, so yeah, great. So the values I had for the camera, so parent the camera to your spring arm. Actually, maybe that will do it. There we go, that's pretty good. And then, so create your spring arm and then your camera and parent it to that. And the values I found were, we rotated it 5 degrees in, and so there it goes again, -5, and I moved it, over to the left a few units, so like 0 and 5, something like that. And I also set auto activate to false so that we don't see it. But just to show you how that went, then I took both of them and I parented it to the mesh, and I also parented player info to it. So with that set up, let me just show you how it works. We will disable the first person camera, well, it already is, and we'll enable the camera 3P, and we'll enable the mesh spring arm, third person spring arm, sorry, spring arm third person, and we will set the third person mesh to visible and owner no see to false. So I'll show you what it looks like. So it kind of, you'll see the arms too, but so it kind of plays like that. So nice and easy to see most of your character, and we'll do some more camera work with it, but it works pretty good. It collides with the environment, obviously, because of the spring arms, so I like it. And then you can fire. We'll have to change where they're spawning from, obviously, once we get a gun mesh in here, or use the stock gun, and then we'll be able to aim down the sights. We'll set up some camera control eventually, basically. But yeah, that's how that works. So I like it, and this will allow us to see other characters as well. So I'll just go back and let's set this to its proper values, which I'm going to get into here with the functionality. So owner no see, true, visible, false, spring arm, auto activate, false, camera, auto activate, false, first person camera we can set to re-auto activate. And so what we did is under the info, well, it's in the info category, but I created a variable called B in third person, a Boolean obviously because of the B. It's editable, and yeah, it's in the info category, and currently it's set to false. We'll probably set it to true later, because Battlefield is in third person a lot of the time. And also we created a helper function called isCar in third person, which returns that value, and it's set as a peer function, and all that means is you just get let's find one. You just get that kind of function, so that'll help us when we create some other functions. And then we created one more called enable third person view, which I'm gonna throw in a category called cameras. And so it takes an input called be set to third person. So basically, are we setting it to third person? And so if we call this function and set it to third person, we want to set our variable be in third person that we created to that value, obviously, because if we're calling this to enable third person view, we want that to be true. And so what we do is we drag off of that to set the visibility of the mesh. So drag in the mesh as a getter, and then set visibility. And the visibility Boolean, come on, delete. I hate all that does that too, another little bug. Set visibility Boolean comes from that variable, and I guess it should propagate to children now. It didn't before because I had nothing parented, but now I have stuff parented, so yeah, we'll want to propagate to children. And then we rerouted the mesh reference, and we did a set owner no see, and its Boolean input comes from the opposite of be in third person. So we use a not Boolean node, which, as you can see, returns a logical complement of the Boolean value, not a. So if it's true, the not will return false. So owner no see would be set to false. And then we use that same value to set the visibility of the first person arms to false. So drag in your mesh 2p, set new visibility to that not Boolean, and then propagate to children so that the mesh and the gun are also not visible when we switch modes. So I got that far. Actually, that's pretty much about as fast as it took me, so not much difference. So let's compile and save all that. And so what I was going on when it crashed is basically we can have different meshes for different classes now that we have first and third person kind of not set up totally, but available to us. So I was thinking that would work perfect with our classes, because if we go into our BP game instance, under configuration we have our defined teams, red and blue, but we could do that for classes too. So I was thinking, in our classes we created this structure, but we never used it because we wanted to use the classes. So now we can actually use it. So what we could do is we can add a new variable called 3p mesh, which will be a skeleton skeletal mesh reference, and then a new variable that is also a skeletal mesh reference called 1p mesh. And so then what you could do is you can basically have a different mesh for each class. Let's save that. Let's go into our BP game instance. Let's add a variable called defined classes, which will be an array of that structure underscore classes info. And we want that to be editable, and so this will say the define what classes you want to be able to be chosen from for characters. And we can just leave it, we'll put it in the config category since it's a configuration. So config, and then we can compile, we can set it to an array, and then we can compile. Then we can add our classes. So class name, example, assault. Its icon is assault. Logo and class description, well-rounded class. And then our third-person mesh is going to be SK mannequin. Our first-person mesh is going to be SK mannequin arms. And so we'll work off of that. And then once we get the rest of the classes, they can have their own meshes too. So you'd want to add all of your classes. So let's go assault and sniper, shooters with high-powered rifles and quiet. And we only have these meshes to work with, so we'll probably work with visuals, but we can set up all our classes to have them available. So then we'll have our medic, more health, and equipped with med packs to heal teammates. Class icon is medic icon. The mesh, for now, again, we just have to work with what we have. And then we'll add our last one, demolition. Class icon is demolition logo. Heavy and slow, but armed to blow stuff up. And SK mannequin arms. So we can define our classes in there as visual meshes, so each class can have a different mesh. So we'll compile and save. And then we'll probably be able to use our selected class ID variable to work with that then. But for right now, we'll just work with one class, assault or whatever. So next, we might as well work that into our character. So if we go to the event graph, which is getting very messy, really needs some cleaning up. I mean, it is technically organized, but not well, because this is all temporary stuff. I should almost like put this in its own graph. These are all custom events. We don't have a tick. We should let's take everything except the event begin play, and let's put that in a new graph. Let's just call this custom events and damage. Let's paste those back in there and organize them and put them up against there, just like that. That'll help. So event graph, event begin play. We do our debug text render stuff. Then what we want to do is let's make a function. Let's call this set character mesh. Set car mesh. So description sets the mesh of the character based on the class array information, and thus updates all mesh related variables and info, etc. And its category will be, I guess it would be mesh or setters. We'll just leave it there for now in default. And so we want an input, which will be an integer, and this will be in class ID, so whatever class is chosen. And yeah, so what we'll want to do is we'll want to get game instance. I have a key for this somewhere, but I have no idea what it is. And I don't want to bore you guys with that. I don't even think I do. Get game instance anyways. And then we'll want to cast to it and convert to a peer cast. And drag off and get defined classes. And then we'll want to do an array get, hold down A and left mouse click of the class ID in. Connect that up. And then we'll want to break it. Let's see, we can probably move that back. Doesn't need to be way over there. So we'll be using third person and first person mesh. So let's bring in our mesh variable as a getter, and so we'll want to set mesh, set skeletal mesh, right? It's a skinned mesh component. So that is the target, and the new mesh will be the third person mesh. So let's comment that. So set third person mesh to class mesh. You'd say class specific. And we'll also want to drag in mesh 2p. I don't know why they call that mesh 2p by stock, but whatever. And the same thing, set skeletal mesh. And it'll be the first person. Just rewrote that so it looks nice. And so that'll be set first person. Just do that so that we know it's the same thing. Probably bring that in a little bit. We'll just drag it up there and bring it all the way in. Why not? There we go. Cool, cool. And then we'll use our helper function, is character in third person. As you can see, we can just drag that in, and it's a pure function that'll give us information. For our first person stuff, we're going to want a not boolean to give us the logical complement, aka if it's true, it'll be false. So if we are in third person mode, then we want to, although we did this exactly the same thing in here. So I'm thinking we can just call that, although that's enabling it to third person. So if we do that, maybe we'd want to put this into its own functionality, because we could easily turn that into a function, which we could call. So yeah, let's do that. You guys will have to go back. I just selected all the other stuff past is third person and then set it to a function. We'll call that update upon meshes. Yeah, that'll work. Why not? And then we can go back to set character mesh. And we don't want to enable third person view, we want to update pawn meshes. Ooh, that sounds very similar. Let's call that set first person 1p 3p 1p and 3p meshes. Let's give it a tooltip so don't forget the description. Based on, or let's just say, never use this node outside, or never call this node from an outside class. It is used just to prevent code duplication. Sets first and third person meshes, visibility based on B is B in third person variable. Let's put that category, let's put it somewhere like nested functions. Let's nest that itself in just call this like helper functions, nested functions. Why not? So basically what we'll want to do is if the character is in third person, then we'll want to think about how to do this. So we'll want the new visibility to be based on that, and this not comes from there actually, so we can get rid of A. Let's first of all go to enable third person view and get rid of that pin just to make sure it's safe. We can get rid of A. Actually, let's go back to enable third person view. Let's comment that and just say collapsed function to prevent code duplication. So yeah, what we'll want to do when we set our character mesh, we'll want to set the visibility. We'll want of both of them, and we'll want to set the owner knows C based on not, and everything propagates to children. Yeah, that'll work. So it'll work exactly based off of is car in third person. So that we can actually put in our helper functions category. Helper functions. Did I put that as one word? Helper functions. Nope. Alright, so set character mesh. So all we need to do is just plug that in. That is character in third person. Set first person, third person meshes, like so. Alright. So basically what that's doing is it's taking our class mesh, it's setting it all, and then it's setting the visibility of all of them based on if we're in third person or not. And we're calling that. And we also do that when we call enable third person view manually, but this is going to be initially, so we're going to be able to enable or disable it obviously with our being third person variable, but initially we need to set it. So that's what the set car mesh. So we could put this like initialize as the category. We should say sets initially. And make sure that's being called from the event begin play no. So we want to call that on event begin play. And in class ID, we will need to go and get that from somewhere. So we'll want to create a variable. Did we already create one maybe? Let's see, information, config, stock template, no. My character, good. Alright, so it'll be temp, no, Perfect. So let's create a variable called class ID. It'll be an integer, and it'll have a default value of 0 or assault. So use to select classes from game instance. Define classes array. So we'll plug that into there, and we'll set up a way to set it later using the GUI. Right now we obviously don't have a way to set that, but let's comment this out. It initializes the meshes based on class, and if we're in first person or third person mode at start. We'll have an option for that. Maybe have it server forced or whatever. Alright, so we have third person stuff available to us now, as well as based off of classes. So I just want to have that there and ready. So I almost feel we should set it up so that, let's see, so that's the default. I think that would be cool. So let's create another function called initialize cameras, and give it an input, a boolean called be in third person. And so let's bring in our first person camera and our third person camera, and let's activate, or let's do an is active first on both of them. So be in third person branch. Actually, I guess we could just use our helper function. So let's get rid of that. Actually, no. So we'll bring that into a branch. Let's do a double verification. So after that, we'll want to call our helper function, is car in third person, and put that into a branch as well. Just double redundancy. So if be in third person is set to true, then we go to a branch, is character in third person. So double check we are indeed wanting to be in 3P, and set to be in 3P. Should make that a little bit clearer. No, that'll be fine actually. And then false will be first person. So let's bring our first person camera, third person camera. So if in third person is true, then we go up here, we go to a branch, are we indeed in third person? If false, let's do a debug print string. Let's make it red, and we'll get rid of it eventually, but just to make sure we don't get any errors, and say wanted to set cameras to 3P, but car isn't in 3P. Check BP base car. Let's go car init cameras function. And we'll put that up there for 10 seconds. So that'll be kind of like if everything goes to hell, if our double redundancy doesn't work out. So then we check, is our camera active? If both of those check out is, is like a triple redundancy now. Is 3P cam already active? If true, we don't need to do anything. If false, however, we need to reroute. We want to activate set active. Forgot about the toggle active. That could be used actually. Oh, well, we'll make a better version later. Whatever, it works for now. Set active. So, B new active. Yes. Although I prefer not to just set a variable like that. So since we're only getting here if is car in third person comes true, which is run by that variable, let's just use that with that variable. So info be in third person. If we are, then we set the third person camera to true. Set active, and we also want to get the spring arm. Oh, if it's already active, we don't need to do anything, sorry. If false, we need to set active. And either way, we want to take spring arm 3P and do the same thing. Is active, branch, set active. Kind of complicated, but there's ways to make this much cleaner, which we'll get to in a little cleanup video eventually. So new active will be same thing based on B is in third person. So let's just bring it down here and reroute. So if spring arm is not active, then set it. However, if the third person camera is already active, then we want to set the spring arm to active anyway. So let's just set this up here so it doesn't look like it's all messed up. This will definitely need some cleaning up. Alright, good enough for now. So you can comment this. Activates 3P cam / spring arm if in third person and they aren't active. Alright, then we can just duplicate this basically. If false, we go into this branch and we want B is in third person, the opposite, so not Boolean. And then we just want to replace this. So to 1P. So all we got to do is replace camera 3P with first person camera, and spring arm 3P with, oh, it doesn't have a spring arm, right? So we can just do that for now. Is 1P cam already active? Activates 1P cam. No spring arm. If in third person is false. Alright, and that obviously won't work, so we want, again, the opposite, not. And plug it into there. A little bit messy, but it'll work. I almost want to set those into their own functions though, because we're initializing it based on that setting. And that'll happen every time we die. We won't be able to change it in between. So we'll want a way to toggle cameras too, which I'm thinking we could fit into this function. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. Let's leave ourselves a little note. Initializes camera on event begin play, aka when game is started. or on respawn based on be in third person variable, and double checks with is car in third person helper function. Note, add in ability to toggle cameras for in-game use, and clean up, because that's very messy. Anyways, we'll want to go back to our event graph. I just want to close everything. Close other tabs. Close everything. Event graph. So we'll want to set our character mesh, and then we'll want to initialize cameras. Let's put cameras into camera category. Oops, I got cameras. And set character mesh, initialize. Let's go initialize. Let's go visual meshes. And let's go visual cameras. Visual, actually I'm going to select it from the list. Visual cameras, there we go, cool. Everything's nice and clean. Just our unwrap health sitting there and our class ID. But since we haven't worked with that yet, I'm going to leave that there for now and do the default category. And whoops, why is C not working? C is bugs, I don't like them. Initialize cam based on is in 3P car. Let's give those guys a little bit of space. Whoa, man, need some space. And that's going to be run obviously by B as in third person, which right now is set to false. Let's test that out. And first though, let's take both these and comment. Handles initial first person / third person mesh and camera initialization and class meshes. Alright, cool. Compile, save. Whoa. Target must have a connection set active. Oops, I forgot to connect this to spring arm. Rewrote that bad boy. Good enough. Alright, compile, save. I totally didn't mean to make two windows, so we'll just close that. I didn't mean to put details down there. So let's set B as in third person to false initially, and let's make sure that we start in first person, which we do. And actually, let's do this over here so that we can eject and make sure that both meshes aren't showing up. Okay, perfect, so that's great. And then we should try B as in third person true. Compile, save, and play. And now we're kind of in third person, but it's got the wrong camera. So that's clearly not working properly. Initialize cameras. So we gotta find out where is it failing. And normally I debug along with you guys, but I don't know if people find it helpful to see troubleshooting like live, I guess you could call it, or if they just prefer to see the answer. So I'm going to skip the debugging today, and you guys let me know what you prefer. Okay, so I thought of a different and easier way to do this. Instead of the branch coming in from B as in third person, which our helper function is using anyway, just get rid of that and get rid of that input, and just use a sequence. And so first we go through and we check, are we in third person? Same setup as before. Let's get rid of the false print string, because obviously we're going to have false conditions. And then we just do the same thing down here, and if we are in third person, then we instead do this. We deactivate the first person camera if in third person is true. So if we are in third person is true, then we basically set the camera to active. And if it's false, it doesn't matter because that's the default camera. First person camera is set to auto activate. So for now that will work. So as you can see right now, in third person is set to true. Compile, save, play. We have our third person set up. It doesn't feel as smooth, so I think some settings are off, but we'll get to that when we make a proper camera manager. And then we set that to false. Compile, save, play. We have first person back. So I'm happy with that. I also want to go to visual meshes, set car mesh, set first person, third person meshes. I want to also I'm gonna try something. If we're in third person, true, compile and save. Does that mean, what do we see? Do we see the other players? No, we see the other players in third person. Cool. So that's exactly what I wanted. However, we will run into the problem where if we set it to false and play with two players, we are going to see their arms. So we need to, I believe there's actually a pure function that gets the number of players. Get total number of players. Is that something we made? No, that's a default thing. So in set car mesh, actually I want to just do this for now since it's kind of prototyping. I just totally came up with it off the top of my head. Event graph, event begin play. Let's get the number of players. Target is game mode, so what we'll need to do is get game mode, not game instance. I knew I had a key for that. Aha. Cast to our game mode, convert to peer cast. Actually, we don't need the cast, we can just return. And then the return value, if it is greater than 1 branch, if we have more than one player, then we want to set we want to set mesh set owner no C. Set only owner C. True. Actually, let's do that with the mesh 2P. We should actually have the arms active at all times, so I'm gonna just rig it for now, and we'll fix it up later in the set meshes function. We can do that in there, I think I just thought of, because I don't like setting these either, although this would be based on if greater than 1, true, so true, true. But we can put that totally in the set character mesh or initialize cameras functions, but I just wanted to try that. Set owner no C. How come that's got no property associated with it? Okay, that's very odd. Mesh 2P has that, does it not? Editable when inherited. Well, it's not inherited. Rendering. Owner no C. Only owner C. Invisible view actor is the component's owner. Yeah, actually, you know what? We don't even need to do that since only the owner sees the arms. We just want the arms to always be around, do we not? We want to set them, but we don't need to set the visibility of them. Am I thinking? I think I'm thinking too hard on this. Compile, save, play, set us to third person. Sorry, no, first person. I want to be able to see the mesh when I'm in first person. I want to see the other players. I'm thinking backwards. So we'll connect that back up. So let's do this. Get number of players. If it's greater than 1, then we would want to do this over here. But yeah, I just want to do something kind of hacky for now. Set owner no C on mesh to true, and set visibility. Set visibility mesh. New visibility true. But new owner no C. See if that works. So we're in first person mode. Do we see their gun still? Propagate to children. No, we don't need to. It's greater than 1. Set owner no C of mesh true. And set the visibility. Let's just try this. Owner no C true. New visibility true. Compile. Save. Play. And we still see their gun, but not there. Oh, access none. Get from node get none players. Access none. That helps. So the game mode apparently can't be retrieved. So let's try casting. Can we drag off of there and get num players? Yeah, let's try that instead then. I guess I should have debugged this first. Still accessing none? Yes. So let's just do a quick hackish way then. Get all actors, it's not spawn actor. Get all actors of class, BP base character, length of the array. If it is greater than 1, or no. Yeah, if it's greater than 1. There we go. That works for now. And we want to set the gun to owner only C. So FP gun, set that to rendering. Where are you? Rendering. Only owner C. So only we will see our guns, which we probably don't want overall, but right now we do. So yeah, there we go, that's cool. So if we're in first person, the client sees the third person mesh, and the server sees the third person mesh. If we go into third person, I think that's totally gonna break though. Yeah. So that works fine there. So we want this to, so just add an and boolean, be in third person, if we are, it's greater than 1, that's true, and be in third person if that's true. So we want the opposite, so we want another not boolean and not in third person, I think. Let's try. There we go, cool. So we're in third person, we can see them, that works, cool, cool, cool. Still damage, and if we set it back to first person, very hackish, not the greatest blueprinting I've ever done. There we go, cool, I like that. But it'll work for now, it's just prototyping, so if none players, since game mode needs a function for that ASAP, just leave myself a little note, greater than 1, and totally coding it, and be in third person equals false, then show third person mesh, but only to other players. Cool. So I'm gonna expand this comment over here. This handles first person, third person mesh, and cameras, whatever junk, so that I can remember that it needs a lot of cleaning up. But we got some pretty cool games configuration stuff set up today, so we can start making game options. And with game options comes video, sound, all that good stuff. Totally getting to a full-fledged game more or less soon. Not quite, but anyways, let's set that to a color. Set it to what are the cameras? They're like a weird blue. Set that to that weird blue, kind of like that. Alright, cool. So I'm gonna leave it off there. Thanks again, guys, for watching from the team here at UnrealTek, division of BlenderTek.com. If you enjoyed this video and learned something, please like it, subscribe as well. We take donations. We're on social media, and the link's on your screen. If you dislike this video for some reason, tell us why so we can improve them. So we'll see you next time. Remember, create your way.